guys. So today we are going to look at the war between Iran and Israel and America. I'm going to give you the updates on what is happening, and we're also going to look at the Iran strategy. What is the strategy of Iran? How does Iran intend to come out of this? This plan has been in the offing. During the 12-day war, the Israelis and Americans took Iran by surprise. Although the Iranians don't have enough time since that period to prepare well enough, but they are better prepared this time than the last time when they took them by surprise. And don't get me wrong, Israel have intelligence. They've still been targeting and taking out some of their leaders. But we are here today at this point. Today is the 3 of this American-Israeli onslaught against Iran, and Iran is fighting back. One other thing I also want to talk about is that Iran is not just hitting Israel and America. They're not even hitting mainland America. They are hitting American assets in the region. And they have made it very clear that if they are attacked, that they will attack American assets in the region, in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait. In fact, we saw a video in Kuwait or in Bahrain, where 2 American jets were shot down. 3 of them, by the way, were shot down by the air defense system of, I think it's Kuwait, that shot down the air defense, that shot down the jets of the Americans. And this, they said it was a friendly fire, according to CENTCOM. It was an accident, and that the pilots were able to eject safely. And then we saw a video of one of the pilots being forced to kneel down by the citizens of, I think it's Bahrain, ask him to kneel down, when they're like mocking him. But most of them will not even unalive him because they don't want to get in trouble with their government. But this is how they truly feel. Some of them are celebrating seeing Iranian missiles hit their own country because they are against their government, because they are against what their government is doing, because they don't like to have this relationship with America. On the surface, America is telling, oh, we have allies, we have allies. Now you're finding out in real time. The Saudis, in the lead up to this conflict, said, oh, we are not interested in the conflict. But I don't buy that story because the Saudis have been advocating for this for a long time. The Saudis, the Emiratis. But one thing I've found out over the past 2 days is that Iran has been targeting, though I don't know, they've had like 5 shots against Saudi Arabia already. The American embassy, the refinery, they targeted the city of Riyadh. They've done that to the so-called American military bases, even though Saudi Arabia is claiming that these are not independent bases, so to speak, that these are Saudi airfields and Saudi royal fields that the Americans are leasing or are staying in for a brief period of time. So, yeah, let's have the real conversation. So when the Iranians hit the Saudis, they're saying, oh, let's go to war with Iran. The Saudis have not done that yet. The Saudis, like the Brits, said they are taking a defensive position. We also saw the so-called drone attack on the British base in Cyprus, in Limassol in Cyprus. That base is one of the biggest. It's a very big base in Europe, right? It's a big base in Europe. It's in proximity to Turkey. It's in proximity to that side of the Mediterranean, particularly the Eastern Mediterranean. And the Eastern Mediterranean is very important. In fact, if you want to have access to the Western Mediterranean, you have to control the Eastern Mediterranean as a doorway to the Western Mediterranean. So it's very, very important for us to see what is really going on. So they claim that the drone hit that place. The British were like, hang on a second. Yeah, we know that, but we are going to take defensive position. So Britain has refused to get involved in a war to attack Iran. They say we are going to stay in a defensive position. If we see Iranian drones flying towards us, we are going to knock them down from the sky. If Iranian jets come to our skyline, in Cyprus, we are going to knock them down. But we are not going to attack Iran, which is a complete shift from what we saw during Bush and the British Prime Minister at that time. These guys are now taking a completely different position and saying, we don't want to continue in these lines. We don't want you to lead us to unnecessary wars. If you guys have planned, you and the Israelis have planned to go to war, don't get us involved. And it's funny that in the Arab Gulf countries, those guys are also very cautious in their approach. Well, we had stories that the Qataris knocked down some Iranian plane and they arrested some Iranian sleeper cells. Yeah, all of that is in defensive position. None of them is actively putting their soldiers on the ground to go and fight against Iran. Because even though the Saudis have been advocating that they want Iran weakened, they don't want it done in this way where America will have boots on the ground and Israel will be the one to control the country based on who they want to bring it to power. Because if Iran is controlled in that way, and Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, and Israel now becomes the dominant player in the Arabian or the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia is in trouble. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a double whammy. So today, like I said, we are going to look at the strategy of Iran. How is Iran able to manage this affliction and pain? How is Iran able to manage this with little resources? We are going to discuss that extensively, looking at the strategy of Iran, the strategy of attrition by cost. So the Iranians have planned for a long, drawn-out war of attrition. The Americans want to, if you are the Americans, you want a quick lightning war. This is why you have brought in all this firepower, so that you can knock down Iran in 5 days and go home. 5 days, because the American strategy and thinking is that if we go there and we bomb the regime from the sky, what is going to happen is that the people are going to turn against their government. And President Trump told them, help is coming. We are going to bomb the regime and allow you to take over government. Well, they've done that. And the people are not moving. If anything, more than 1 million people came out for the burial of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So the strategy of America, the more they stay there, the more they continue to bomb from the sky for the next 40 days. Iran, the situation in Iran is not the same thing with Iraq. Iraq in 2003 was different, because in Iraq, what made it possible is the heterogeneity, in the sense where the Shias were the majority, and the Shias don't want Saddam. You know, they had a problem with Saddam. But in Iran, majority of the people are Shia, majority of the people are Persians. So if you are going to play that game of sectarianism or division in Iran itself, you cannot do that. The regime is inoculated against sectarianism and against tribal and tribal proclivities and tribal sentiments that might take down the government in other countries. This has not happened yet in Iran. The regime has not cracked. If anything, they have made it possible that if one leader is unalive, there are plans in place for the next person to take over, and the next person, and everything. And you have like different commanders in different sector mountains that are taking out their command differently, with them independently able to navigate and communicate and continue to strike. So everything is smooth and sailing, everything is going on with different command centers. So if you take down one command center, another command center will continue to operate. This is just the beginning. So we are going to look at Iran's strategy of attrition by cost. Now, in modern warfare, the side with the most advanced weapon does not always win. This is not how it works. And we see again what is happening in Ukraine. So the side with the highest firepower, with the most advanced weapons, does not always win. Sometimes the real battle is not about technology or firepower. It's about ideology, and it's about economics. Right now, the analysis and most analysts and military strategists are increasingly discussing the concept of attrition by cost. The idea is simple. Force your enemy to spend far more money defending against attacks than you spend against launching them. Okay? The enemy is going to spend a lot of money taking defensive positions, because it's all good and fine for America to bring in all these aircraft carriers. That aircraft carrier, they spend a lot of money defending it than the actual payload it carries to destroy. So it is very expensive. Iran in itself is, the country itself is its own aircraft carrier that cannot be sunk. It's very difficult. How do you sink one of the largest countries in the world, Iran? It's a very big country. It's mountainous. The terrain is very rough, and they have a lot of hideout. People can hide in the mountains and fire all these missiles in different positions and do it repeatedly. So the idea of attrition by cost is simple. You force your enemy to spend far more money defending against attacks than you spend against launching them. So look at it. The Iranians are building drones, copycat models of American drones that they seized during the American surveillance drones that they took. That America spent some of them, you see the equivalence of American $10 million drone. The Iranians are building it for $5,000, $15,000, $20,000. Same quality, even some of them highly modernized and upgraded, and can carry the same amount of payload and can do equal amount of damage. It is easier to do damage than to defend or than to build. So America is the one that is that is taking this strategic initiative. America is the one that is taking the initiative to go and attack Iran. So they have to spend a lot more money. They have to put more men on the ground because they are the ones that are trying to prove something. The burden of proof is on the United States. And Iran is saying, okay, asymmetric warfare. Let's see how you are able to come out of this. We have to put a cost, a premium to you coming to this place. You can kill 1 million people, fine, but we want you to put your boots on the ground. It will be difficult for you. So America is banking on rebellion inside the country, people turning against their government, or the Kurds. Again, the Kurds. I said it so many times that this is why the Kurds will never get love from anybody in the region. Because anytime the Americans come and want to use them for dirty work, they accept it. They take weapons from the Americans. They do the dirty job of America. And when America doesn't need them anymore, they discard them. In Syria, in Iraq, against Turkey, in Iran before, and they're doing it again. So some experts believe that Iran may be applying this strategy of attrition by cost against the United States of America. So instead of immediately using all its advanced missiles, Iran could be launching cheaper rockets, drones, and older missile systems in large number. And what Iran is even doing now, they are not launching it in large numbers. They're using their missile system from the 80s and the 70s. And if you watch, it's not like the attack against Israel where they sent 200 of those missiles and they sent 500 drones. No. Iran is sending 5 drones to Israel. They send 1 to Saudi Arabia. They send 1 to Bahrain, 1 to Kuwait, and they're landing. All of them are landing. Okay, so they're sending these systems left, right, and center, and then you're hearing massive, this large explosion because these drones are suicide drones. They carry payload that can cause significant. Look at Burj Al Arab, for instance. If you take a drone and hit the middle of the building, all the structure is bad. It's gone. That is a $5 billion property that you have damaged with a drone that cost $20,000. So this is what the cost is. This is how much it costs to wage war. This is how much it costs to fight. And when the and this is why the Saudis and people in the region are warning President Trump, don't do this. Well, the president of America doesn't care because he believes and he's been told that he's the savior of the world, and he's the one that have accepted. 3 or 4 American presidents, the Netanyahu, have been trying to get them to attack Iran. And Trump is the one that finally did it. This is the second time. Because they are praising him in Israel. They say, oh, you are the biggest guy since King Cyrus, and so on and so forth. They're telling him how good he is, and he's akin to the story of Mordecai in the Bible, and how Trump is as big as Mordecai and the sister Rebecca, and so on and so forth. And they build a street after him, and they tell him he's God, and so on and so forth. And they are massaging his ego. This is why he has decided to do this. So they are going to build a street after him. They are going to put his name in the annals of history in Israel. He's the biggest and the best leader of the Jewish people, even though he's not a Jew, after Cyrus. So they give him all these accolades and they give him all these praises and so on and so forth. And he's buying it. So this is why he's been dragged into this. And some could argue that it could be for other reasons. Maybe they have something on him. But I don't want to go into the realm of speculation. Let's focus on the topic, which is Iran's strategy against America, asymmetric warfare. The idea of attrition by cost. Attrition by cost. So what is Iran looking out to get? What is Iran trying to get from this war with the United States of America? And how can Iran defeat America with all the payload and all the firepower that America have? It is not just easy or simple to say, just because you have spent more resources that you can win, then you can win a war. No, your fingers are going to get burnt and you are going to be dragged in. The last thing America wants at this point is to get dragged into a long, drawn-out war of attrition. So now the question today becomes, now, because every missile interceptor, like I said, it is very expensive for America to launch this war. So the idea of attrition by cost is simple. You force your enemy to spend far more money defending against attacks than you spend launching them. Some experts believe Iran may be applying this strategy against Israel and the United States. So instead of immediately using its most advanced missiles, Iran could be launching cheaper rockets, drones, and even old missile systems in large number. Why? Because every missile interceptor fired from defensive systems like the Iron Dome or the US naval defenses can cost hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million. Okay, so could Iran be attempting to drain the missile defense system of its adversaries before deploying more advanced weapons? Now, in this presentation today and in this conversation, we would like to examine the strategy. We would like to look at the strategy, the economics behind it, the military realities behind it, and what it could mean for the future of warfare as we're seeing in Ukraine today. So just because you have more money does not mean you can win the war. Just because you have more resources to put on the ground does not mean you can win the war. Now let's understand what attrition warfare is. It's very important to understand the concept of attrition, of attrition, of war by attrition. Now, historically, attrition, has been employed over time, during the course of history. So historically, wars have often been decided by which side could sustain losses longer. How much stamina do you have? How long can you sustain losses? And this is why the Israelis don't like the idea of attrition. They want quick lightning war. But Iran is different. Iran is not Egypt in the 1950s. Iran is not Lebanon. Iran is not Gaza. Iran have a lot of challenges in terms of you going there and taking the war to them. If Israel want to go to Iran, for instance, how do they do it? They can bomb from the sky all they want, but what result can they get from bombing from the sky for, let's say, for 1 year? If Israel goes on their own and bomb from the sky for 1 year, what results could it give them? What outcome could it give them? This is what I want you guys to understand. What could be the outcome of an Israeli onslaught bombardment from the sky for a period of 1.5 years in Iran? It's going to be counterproductive. Well, Iran also can sustain, launching this, and we thank God for rocket science. So if you don't have advanced planes, you just put all the payload, all the dead load, you put them on drones and you send them on suicide missions. Thank God for rocket science. You put them on rockets and send them towards the direction of your targets. And some of these rockets can carry even heavier payload than some fighter jets. Well, you can talk about the B-2 bombers that can carry 30 tons, and stuff like that. You can talk about fighter jets like the F-35 that can carry heavier payload. But most of these fighter jets are very small. Their engines are very small, so because they move quickly, and the aerodynamics and of these models are designed, particularly the 5th generation fighters are designed in a way to make it smaller, and hence they carry smaller payload. So we need to understand that. So these missile systems, ICBM and so on and so forth, carry a heavier payload. So you can just put solid fuel in them, and you can easily have a range of 4,000 kilometers, easily have a range of 3,500 kilometers, and you can retrofit different layers of the solid fuel. As it's firing, it is discarding the engine and firing again and discarding the engine and deliver the payload to anywhere you want it to deliver. So this is rocket science, guys. It's rocket science. Anyway, let's go back to the conversation of the strategy of Iran, of attrition as a model. Okay, they are using attrition by cost. The longer the conflict goes on, America is now going to be spending 400 billion, 500 billion. This is the money they don't have. And if they are going to spend 500 billion in 9 months, in 10 months, in 11 months, they better win the war. Because if they don't win the war, the economic cost on it and the burden of that on the Trump government is going to be enormous. So it is important for us to understand this idea. So like I said, let's look at the concept of attrition. Attrition in modern warfare. Historically, wars are often decided by which side could sustain longer losses. One of the most famous examples was the World War I, where both sides attempted to exhaust each other's resources and manpower over time. And this went on for a long period of time. This is the concept of the conflict by attrition. Now, like I said, but in modern warfare, it has introduced a new dimension of economic attrition. We want you to put in more resources. We want this to continue over time. And we know America is already in over $38 trillion of debt. So they are trying to suffocate China economically. You are owing China half of that money, and now you're trying to cut China's energy security. Because if you look at what China was doing, China was buying oil from Venezuela and from Iran in yuan because of the sanctions. because Iran has refused to play boss. Iran has refused to acquiesce. Hence, China is buying it with the yuan. And this is what America does not like. But like I said, in modern warfare, it has introduced a new idea of attrition warfare by cost, the economic implication of attrition. And instead of exhausting soldiers, countries attempt to exhaust equipment, ammunition, and defense system. Missile, drones, and air defenses have become extremely expensive, particularly their magnets. And the source of some of these magnets come from China. So if you want to embark on a long drawn-out war of attrition, China can impose sanctions on the rare earth magnet. China control over 80% of the supply of rare earth magnets needed for these defense systems. The Iron Dome, the Davis Sling, most of the magnets they need for these defense systems are coming from China. China controls about 60% of world rare earths, and another 20% of the processing of. They outsource it from other countries, from Congo, from Nigeria, from Iran, and from other places, and then they process it. And China have now developed an AI model that can refine some of these magnets. So China is light years ahead of everybody else right now as we speak. China is light years ahead of America and everybody else. So this is why we have found ourselves in this position. And again, this is an academic conversation, so I want you to follow me. This is not people coming up and cursing themselves. And so everything I'm telling you, it's theoretical. It is rooted in strategies that have worked and have been tested. And I'm also giving you a proper understanding, an academic insight of what is going on. So like I said, so instead of exhausting men, what countries do these days in the concept of attrition by cost is that instead of exhausting soldiers, countries attempt to exhaust equipment, ammunition, defense system. Missiles, drones, air defense system have become extremely expensive. So if a country can build cheap weapons in massive quantities, it can force its opponent to spend huge sums defending against them. It is insane. So let's think about it. For instance, America wants to carry out a war of expedition. Now they drive all their aircraft carriers to that place. Look, America have more drones, probably can manufacture more drones, and they have the industrial capacity to do so. But you can't go to Iran and carry all these aircraft carriers there to be flying drones that will be dropping small payload here and there. The people that can afford to do that is Iran. Iran will be flying these drones constantly to test those aircraft carriers. And every day you keep them there with the frigates, because it comes with a whole company, right? The frigates, the destroyers, the everything around it needs defense. And the aircraft carrier is, you spend a lot more money defending everything around it, because if you take out all the company around it, then you expose it. So you are spending tens of millions every day defending it, and the Iranians don't have to do much. They'll send a $15,000 drone, 4 of them a day. That's it. That's it. This is the concept of attrition by cost. So instead of exhausting men, you are exhausting their resources and forcing them into position. So during the course of this war, if Iran is spending $10 billion, America will spend $1 trillion. If Iran ends up spending $20 billion defending themselves, America will spend $2 trillion. And again, it's very expensive. You guys need to understand. They are not just sending one of the aircraft carriers. We heard that they're sending 2 or 3. The USS Harry Truman, USS Gerald Ford, USS Abraham Lincoln, all in that area. And they are well within range. They are in the Indian Ocean. They are well within range. And the Saudis and everybody else is saying, keep these aircraft carriers far away from us. Keep it, because it cannot even operate on shallow waters. It has to be in the deep sea. So whatever you have, and submarines and so on and so forth, if you bring these materials and equipment closer to the Saudis, then the Saudis become a target. And big up to MBS and the people around him. For now, what I'm seeing is that I have my problems with the Saudis, but they are now beginning to realize, they are now realizing today that, hang on a second, if Iran is destroyed, we don't really like the Iranians. That's what the Saudis are saying. The Iranians have also created problems for us. They're supporting all these Shia militias and so on and so forth. We don't necessarily like them. But if you remove Iran, then we, the Saudis, is going to help the Jews in Israel and the Americans to take down the government. And then we saw the videos of the son of the Shah going to the Western wall, pledging his allegiance to Israel. You guys are going to impose this guy in power now, and then Israel and Iran become friends. America take over the economy of Iran. Then Iran gets into an economic position where it starts competing with Saudi Arabia, and then Saudi gradually becomes the enemy. And then they start targeting Saudi Arabia. Now the Saudis, I don't know what policies they've had over the years, but the Saudi leadership is now rethinking. They've got themselves in this position. I saw the attack on the American embassy in Riyadh. I mean, the Saudis are like, okay. And in fact, the Arab countries are very angry. But they can't say anything right now because, again, they are waiting to see how it pans out. They don't want to make it difficult for Iran. I'm telling you, whether you like it or not, I'm one of the biggest critics of the Arabs, particularly the leadership there, but they have shown resilience. They have shown me now that even though they have, they have their fault lines, they have their faults, they're actually thinking through some of these things. Maybe the UAE is not. So these countries see what Iran, I mean, if I was Saudi Arabia and Iran attacked my oil terminals, I'm going to fight back. And the Saudis reserve the right to fight back. I'm not saying it's not going to happen anytime soon, but there's a cost. And before this conflict started, the Saudis, the Iranians told them clearly, look, if the war starts, we are going to target you. We are not going to target your civilians. We are going to target military positions. And people talk about Iran targeting the tall building in the UAE and the bomb blast we had there. If the CIA is going to stay in that facility and they are going to be using equipment there to, in order to use that as their command center, it's going to be targeted. What were you expecting? If the Iranians have intel that these guys are there, they're going to wipe them out. This is a conflict of this is a war of attrition. This is a preemptive war that Israelis launched against them, and they are fighting back. So if the UAE is going to now become the hub of Israel and Jewish Israelis living there to attack Persians, to attack other Arab countries, these guys have a right to defend themselves and fight back. So this is where I start the conversation today, and we're looking at this concept of asymmetric warfare, the concept of attrition by cost, and how Iran can easily win by cost, comparative cost. Okay, we can use this comparative cost analysis, as an economic model to understand the economic implication of this. America is spending billions, tens of billions, every week, every month to keep those assets there, to defend them, to protect them. And if the war goes on for long, America could spend close to $500 billion, more than 1 to 2 trillion, without making any significant gain on the ground. They can depend on the Kurds and whoever to do their fighting for them. They can gain significant advances. But I'm sorry, if the Kurds are coming in with their own ethnic bias and bigotry, and they're trying to take territory from the Persians, the Saudis are not going to like them. The region, people in Bahrain are not going to appreciate the Kurds taking over Iran. The Iraqis are not going to appreciate that. So it's going to metastasize the conflict. It's going to spread the conflict while in the area where different actors are fighting. The Israelis are now launching another operation. Now, look, I don't know what Israel is thinking. This is not Gaza. This is not Gaza. The idea that you can simultaneously start an invasion of Lebanon and wage war against Iran, it's crazy. They don't know what they are doing at this point until the conflict gets to 3 to 4 months. And secondly, America and all these other countries from Europe and so on, all their air defense systems, they are using it to protect Israel. They're using their defense systems to protect Israel. And the Arab countries are saying, we are the ones that gave you the trillions of dollars. Iran attacked us. You packed away all your men and ran away. Right? And you are expecting us to come and fight Iran with you when they are bombing us and you are not defending us. Your defense system, you are using everything to defend Israel. You are not defending us. You are not defending us. You are using all your equipment to defend Israel. And yet you expect us to agree with you. You expect us to stay there. This doesn't make sense. This is very important for us to understand. So different things are going on simultaneously. There are different things going on simultaneously as we speak. It is very important for us to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. So this is an economic war as well, and we need to put it in context. So like I said, let's look at what Iran's plan is. Iran has spent decades developing one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East, if not in the world. Because Iran faced restrictions on purchasing advanced aircraft, weapon system, it has invested heavily in missile technology. I told you guys, thank God for rocket science. Let's go! Thank God for rocket science. It makes it easy for people to begin to look inwards. I mean, I'm very, 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 very proud of what Iran has been able to do so far. I'm very proud of what Iran has been able to do for the past 40 years under sanction, under duress, under punitive measures, under threat of annihilation by everybody else. And they've been able to, sustain themselves. They've been able to deal with the situation. It is crazy what Iran has been able to do. And if you look on the other side, the Saudis are the ones that have the billions of dollars, and they have not been able to do anything with that money. They have not been able to build technology. When it comes to the area of nuclear science, technology, medical advancement, even building their own AI models, Iran is building in the area of rocket science, the space engineering, and a host of other activities. Iran has been able to excel looking inwards. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. So the Iranians have been able to advance and develop models under sanctions. But let's continue the conversation. So Iran today possesses short-range ballistic missiles, medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, large number of rockets, and increasingly unmanned aerial vehicle, or what they call the drones. Now, these drones are the game changer. The drones are the holy grail. And they are building drones that they are putting its own navigation system, because you have drones that have to depend on GPS or Baidu or some sort of technology to drive it. And we're seeing that what is going on in Ukraine is that the Russians are buying a lot of materials from China and building these first-person FPV drones that are very small. Some of these FPV drones cost $500, $600, and you fly these drones. By the way, if you think these drones can do damage, they can do damage. They can cause leakage in one of your boats, your aircraft carrier, whatever. They can cause significant damage. Okay, so you have to shoot them down. And if you have 5,000 of these drones, let's say you have 10,000 of the drones, what can you do with 10,000 drones? And you can have, Iran also have underground systems where production of drones going on as we speak. So it is very difficult for the US to be able to mount a war and win. The only thing America is going to do is to put boots on the ground. And that putting boots on the ground have its own cons. When you put boots on the ground, you better win. If you don't win and you are beaten, look at how it can affect the psychology. Right now, America is in a position where they can look for third parties to negotiate a way out of this and say, yes, we won, and President Trump is going to go home and brag that he has changed the system, he has removed the Ayatollah, and the Iranians have conceded to him, and the missile systems are no longer there, and the IAEA is going to come and he's going to brag and go home. But the longer this conflict goes on, the door to exit becomes difficult. This is why people are telling him, don't do it. But you have other people, the psychophants, telling President Trump, you are the greatest leader since Cyrus. You are the greatest leader that can bring about the Holy Roman Empire back. You are the biggest leader in America's history, bigger than George Washington, that nobody stands to you. You are closer to God, and so on and so forth. Look at what you've been able to do. You have been able to go to Venezuela. You extracted the leader, and the whole world is quiet. And the Americans had a plan that if they go for 3 days to Iran and change the government in Iran, they go to Cuba. So the Americans already had plans in place that if they destroy Iran in 3 or 4 days and they change the government akin to what happened in Venezuela, then the political process can continue while the aircraft carriers can be moved back to Cuba so they can continue with this regime change around the world, especially with governments that don't like them. Well, it's not really going according to plan. And we don't even know for sure that whatever happened in Venezuela has succeeded. We are hearing that rebellion is building in the mountains and in some of the forests of Venezuela, between Venezuela and Colombia. Remember the emergence of FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. They fought for over 40 years. And these people, again, that are building up will be akin to FARC. And what will they do? They'll be coming to Caracas, they'll be targeting the government, they'll be targeting energy infrastructure. So what is the point of putting yourself in this situation? So this is going to continue for a dozen years. So America is building power, but there's also a fault line. All of this can be lost in no time. So the conflict with Iran, we are waiting to see how this unfolds. Today is day 3, and the Iranians are now waking up to the reality that they have to get comfortable. One thing with war, for those of you that have been fought, on the front line before, you are soldiers, you are nervous when you go to the front line. And then you spend 1 month and like 5 of your friends have been killed. You lose every sense of fear. No, there's no fear anymore. You think it's a normal life until you get out of the area and people are saying, oh, that place is dangerous. Okay? A lot of things are happening right now simultaneously, and we need to understand. So today's conversation, again, I'll give you a quick recap. We are discussing Iran's asymmetric strategy of attrition by cost, meaning what is the comparative advantage that Iran have economically? America have brought in these assets worth tens of billions of dollars, if not over $100 billion or more of assets into the region. So they have a lot more to lose. So America is spending tens of millions of dollars or more every day protecting these assets. And it's more expensive for defense than for offense. Defensive equipments are very, very expensive. Of course, offensive equipments are expensive, but Iran over time have built a model, low-cost model, developing in their own engineering and technology, in rocket science, in unmanned aerial vehicles, a lot of rockets. They have short-range ballistic missiles. They have medium-range ballistic missiles. They have cruise missiles. They have large numbers of rockets. And increasingly, they have these unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Now, many of these systems are relatively inexpensive compared to the Western one. And most of the missiles that Iran is even using today date back to the 1970s and 80s. So they are using models from the 70s and the 80s. This is what Iran is firing right now. They are using models and systems from the 1970s and from the 1980s, and they're firing them across board. They're firing them and expanding this very expensive defensive equipment that the Iron Dome will use, that the David Sling will use, that the Arrow will use, that the THAAD system will use, that American defense, European defense, and Israeli defense will have to use. Very expensive, 10 million, 20 million a day. They are burning through defending their critical assets, their towers, their jamming equipment like the command and control centers, some of the electronic devices they need, their runways, because some of these advanced 5th generation fighter jets cannot operate without runways. Okay, so this is also very important. And the only thing I know that Iran has not done yet is that they've not attacked Azerbaijan. Not yet. Azerbaijan could be the next target, but they are not doing that yet because they don't believe that the Israeli airplanes or American planes are flying from Azerbaijan, although they are using that place for surveillance and for other purposes. But this conflict is really interesting because a lot of people, when we're talking about this, they were laughing like, you don't know what you're talking about. Who can sink the aircraft? We had reports that the aircraft carrier was damaged, and a lot of videos and images are surfacing online. But the Americans are saying it didn't happen. I believe them. I'm not even saying it's going to happen now. This is a war of attrition, ladies and gentlemen. The Houthis were able to damage one of them. I think it's the USS Gerald Ford. And the Americans took it from there for maintenance. They ran away from there. These are very expensive equipment. And then the Houthis are firing $600 drones to damage them. $600 drones, $1,000, $10,000 equipment to damage this equipment that cost over $15 billion, some of them. $10 billion. And it will cost, I think, a month or so, it will cost you $100 million to maintain. It is very expensive. So many of these systems are that Iran is building is relatively inexpensive compared to Western weapons. Some missiles in Iran as now date back to designs from the 1970s and the 80s. Now, these older systems may not be extremely precise, but they can still serve as an important purpose. Volume is very important. For instance, look at when the conflict between Russia and Ukraine started, the Russians were blowing through all their ordnances from the 40s and 50s. Volume is very important. Volume is very important because look at the American model and doctrine is about quantity over quality. quantity is very important. And Ukraine eventually found out. When the conflict started, they started buying, the Ukrainians were bringing all these fancy drones from America, the Scan Eagle, and so on and so forth. And they were junk. They were not really made for the environment. And when Ukraine started improvising and building their own drones and building them in quantity, they were far more effective. Because look at Ukraine, the Ukrainian model and the ideology and doctrine is similar to that of the Russians. Although NATO is trying to now rebalance and modify and blend it with whatever strategy they have. Yeah, but this is why the Ukrainians were able to hold off the Russians for this long. Now let's continue with the conversation of how Iran intend to bleed America through 1,000 cuts. Now, like I said, the other models that Iran is using may not be really precise, but they can still serve an important purpose, which is volume. Now, in warfare, quantity can sometimes compensate for quality. Launching large numbers of cheaper weapons can overwhelm defensive systems designed to intercept threats. Yeah, and this is the sad part of it, right? You can't pick and choose which one you're going to knock down. For instance, if there's a rocket worth $300 or $500 firing through the defense system, that you're going to spend $1 million to knock down on equipment. You're going to spend $1 million to knock down on equipment that costs $800. So this is an economic war. Even though you are building all these expensive defense systems, it is going to be difficult for you to sustain the costs. It is very expensive. War is not cheap. It is very, very expensive. So let's put that into consideration as well. Like I said, to understand the strategy, we must understand how the missile defense system operates. Israel's most well-known defense system is the Iron Dome. Now, the Iron Dome is designed to intercept short-range rockets and artillery shells. Okay, it uses radar to detect incoming projectiles and calculate their trajectory. Now, if the system determines that the rocket will hit the populated area or important infrastructure, it launches an interceptor missile. Now, these interceptor missiles are the ones that are very expensive. Now, if the rocket will land in an open terrain, the system often does not intercept it, saving interceptors, because the interceptors are very expensive. This selective approach helps conserve resources. However, interceptor missiles themselves are not cheap. They are very expensive. An interceptor used by Iron Drone, the Iron Drone system can cost tens of thousands of dollars. One other missile defense system, such as the David Sling, Arrow missile defense system, and the U.S. naval interceptors, can cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars per interceptors. This means each defensive shot carries a significant economic cost. I'll say that one more time. Each defensive shot fired from these defensive systems costs a lot of money. So to defend an equipment that costs $500, Israel, which have a low-cost Iron Dome system, is going to spend $30,000 to shoot down a drone that costs $500. This is very interesting. Very interesting. That means, like I said, each defensive shot carries a significant economic cost. Now let's look at the economic imbalance, because we are looking at the war attrition by cost as a strategy by Iran. Iran is engaging in asymmetric warfare. It's engaging in asymmetric warfare, and we are hoping and we're waiting to see. You're waiting to see how the US deals with it. Now consider the economics. Imagine a scenario where Iran launches a missile costing, let's say, $20,000 to $50,000. To intercept that missile, a defense system may launch an interceptor costing $500,000 or more. This creates a cost imbalance. I'll repeat that one more time. For you to understand this asymmetric warfare model of attrition by cost. Attrition by cost. You prolong the conflict and provide them with economic consequence. This is the model. So to intercept a missile, a defense system may launch an interceptor costing $500,000 or more in order to knock down an Iranian system that costs $20,000. Now, this creates, like I said, a cost imbalance. The attacker spends far more less than the defender. If this happens occasionally, it is manageable. But if it happens thousands of times, the economic pressure increasingly and dramatically goes up. This is what attrition is about. So if this is a short war where it's going to happen, in 5-10 days and so on and so forth, you can bear the cost. This is why the Israelis were comfortable with the Palestinians, because the H group will launch some of these rockets and launch 3 or 4 of them and wait until the next 4 months. All of them are going to be knocked down from the sky. There's no cost implication. Israel will spend maybe $100,000 a month knocking down whatever is coming from Gaza. This is completely different. They need to spend tens of millions every month to be able to deal with the situation. Tens of millions every month they will need. Now, this is the core of attrition by cost. You guys need to understand. Now, the attacker have to spend far less money than the defender. And in this case, technically, Iran is the defender, but Iran is not. Iran can bear the brunt of their missiles coming from the other side. America is the one that is carrying out this expeditionary war against Iran. So they are the ones that have equipment on the high sea that they need to defend. Now, if this, like I said, happens occasionally, it's manageable. But if it happens thousands of times, the economic pressure increasingly and dramatically goes up. Now, this is the cause of the attrition by cost strategy. Now, the objective is not necessarily to destroy the target immediately. The objective of this strategy is to force the defender into unsustainable spending and resource depletion. America is already in debt, and you guys are asking them to spend more. Eventually, if interceptor stockpiles begin to run low, defensive coverage could weaken. So how do you defend all these aircraft carriers? How do you defend all these frigates and destroyers? How do you defend territories? Israel, for instance, and Jordan, for instance, and Kuwait and Oman and Bahrain. So if you can't defend these countries, why did you lure them into this position of going and engaging in this stuff with you? And you know how funny it would be for Iran to be able to withstand American pressure and deal with the Americans and push them out at whatever cost. I don't care. They kill on a live 5,000-10,000 Iranians at whatever cost. We saw this in the 80s. Now it's even better. In the 80s, the Basij were fighting and throwing themselves on the front line to be unalived. They were fighting with stones and sticks and fought against Saddam. Saddam mobilized over 1.5 million soldiers to fight. Iran is a different kettle of fish. And this is why President Trump is now calling on dissidents in the country. President Trump is now calling on and banking on tribal divisions like the Kurds. Again, I keep talking about the Kurds. Every time something happens, you guys are dragged in. You guys are the ones doing the bidding of America, and after you do the bidding of America, America will dump you. This has always been the case. This has always been the case. So we are looking at the implication and the economic cost of America doing this. So like I said, the objective is not necessarily to defeat America in 2 days. America have all the firepower. They came with this beautiful equipment, with soldiers wearing beautiful clothes. But if they fight for 1 month, those clothes they are wearing is going to get old. Whatever the equipment they bring there will need maintenance and repair and so on and so forth. And then it's going to be a difficult problem with logistics, because Israel depends on America for supplies. Even during the war in Gaza, they were depending on America. Now America they are depending on is now engaging in this war and depleting their resources and their arsenal. It's going to be very, very difficult. Now, like I said, eventually the interceptor stockpile begin to run low, defensive coverage could be weakened, and it will create opportunities for more advanced weapons to penetrate defenses. Iran is not firing the advanced systems yet. Not yet. This is not the right time. This is not the right time. After we go into month 2, month 3, month 4, and on and on and on, this is going to continue. Now, let's look at the saturation strategy, when you are looking at the asymmetric model of attrition by cost employed by Iran against the United States. Now, closely related to the cost attrition is something called the saturation attacks strategy. Now, saturation occurs when a large number of missiles, rockets, or drones are launched simultaneously. Even the most advanced systems in the world have limits. Even the most advanced models in the world, they have limits. And I truly believe that there will be limits to this. The Americans cannot withstand it for long. They can track and intercept only a certain number of targets at once. If too many threats arrive at the same time, the system may be overwhelmed. The tactic have been observed in several modern conflicts. Drone swarms, rocket barrages, and missile salvos can be used to stress defensive systems. Even if most of the incoming weapons are intercepted, the attack can still achieve its goal if it forces uh, if it forces defenders to use large numbers of interceptors. It's very easy. Now, this is a very important one, guys. I need to take a quick time out. Don't forget to like and share. Keep tapping and sharing. I'll be right back. I am back. Okay. Thank you so much. Ooh, what's going on, my people? What is wrong with my prompts? Um, so, like I said, for those of you that are just joining, a quick recap. We're talking about the strategy of Iran and what Iran intends to achieve and how it can use asymmetric warfare to defeat the United States of America. It's doable. It is definitely doable. And the idea that, it's thank you for the gift. The idea that just because America have more arms, they cannot do it is it's not true. So we're looking at the saturation strategy before I left. I said closely related to the cost attrition Cost attrition theory is something called the saturation attack. Now, when you look at the saturation strategy attack, it occurs when large number of missiles and drones and rockets are fired simultaneously. Even the most advanced systems in the world cannot deal with that. And we saw the Iranians using it during the beginning of the 12-day war, where they sent all the ship missiles, and Israel knocked them down, and everybody's dancing. Oh, these are old drones and equipment from the 90s. Now they are seeing what Iran is able to do. Now they're seeing it. Iran is not Hezbollah. Iran is not the Houthis. Iran is not Gaza. So when you do this with Iran, definitely they can fight back. Now, like I said, if too many threats arrive at the same time, the systems may be overwhelmed and might not function effectively, and putting stress on the defensive system. So defense is very expensive, particularly defensive systems are very expensive to maintain, to furnish, to buy. They are very expensive. Now, could interceptors run out? One of the biggest questions in this conversation that we're having now is about exhausting your interceptors. It's whether defensive systems can actually run out of interceptors. The reality is complicated. Countries like Israel and America maintain stockpiles and production lines of interceptor missiles. They also receive military support and resupply from allies. The most advanced militaries must consider burn rate, how fast weapons are being used. In the prolonged conflict with constant missile launches, resupply and production becomes critical factors. And if you look at the supply line, I don't see the Europeans producing anything. The Europeans are depending on America. So if you're going to bring them from America all the way to the Middle East, the supply line and the logistic line is going to be very, very, very long. And that, again, puts them at disadvantage. So just because they have F-16 and F-35, they need the missiles to fire from them as well. I think it's similar missiles or the similar technology around that the interceptors are using as well, that they will need. They need this precision-guided munitions in order to be able to attack Iran. And again, it has to come from the United States of America. And the logistic line is very long. So it's in prolonged conflict with constant missile launches, resupply and production becomes critical factors. So while interceptor depletion is not inevitable, it's a real strategic consideration. And if you look at this war between Iran and Israel, there's a real possibility that could happen. There is a real possibility. Now, why is this a strategy? Now, while attrition by cost may appear effective, it also carries significant risk. Now, launching large numbers of missiles could trigger massive retaliation. Okay? Modern militaries do not rely on defenses. They also conduct offensive strikes to destroy launch sites, missile stockpiles, and command structure. If launch systems are destroyed early in the conflict, the attrition strategy becomes far less effective. Additionally, countries are constantly developing new defensive technologies that include the laser defense system, electronic warfare against drones. This is very important. I wanted to talk about that as well, and cheaper interceptor solutions. So it's not just about depending on interceptors alone. Electronic warfare and jamming is also very important. Then laser system, which can also knock down some of these drones. Why we are witnessing what we are witnessing may represent a broader shift in military strategy. Increasingly, wars are becoming less contest between them. Let's look at the other areas of it as well. Cheap mass production of missiles on the Iranian side can hand them the advantage, and expensive high tech on the other side, on the American side, does not guarantee them success. So it is stupid to think that just because America have more money, they have more firepower, that they're going to win the war. It's a wrong way of looking at it. There's no winner in war, and people are going to lose their lives on both sides. So Iran's possible strategy of attrition by cost highlights an important truth about modern warfare. Victory is not determined by only the most advanced weapons. It can also be determined by economics, logistics, sustainability. Cheap missiles and drones can challenge even the most sophisticated defenses. But at the same time, powerful militaries adapt quickly, developing new technologies and strategies to counter emerging threats. The real question here is whether attrition by cost exists. The real question is whether it can outlast the defensive systems, industrial capacity of countries like America, and the strategic responses of modern militaries. So this is a very important topic that I wanted us to discuss, ladies and gentlemen. So a quick recap: we are looking at the concept of attrition by cost, and we are looking at the war between Iran and America. Iran employing this asymmetric warfare model to deal with whatever the Americans are throwing at them. So this is what we are discussing today. Like I said, it is very important for us to look at, Iran, the possibility of the outcome being an Iranian victory, or relatively Iran stopping America from achieving the objective. This is what the conversation is about, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for participating. If you have questions, you can ask. For those of you watching on other platforms, I'm available on YouTube. Don't forget to go to my YouTube and subscribe to my channel. It's called Savak Media. If you have questions there, if you want to ask me any questions on my YouTube, don't forget